Florida taking down LSU 27-16. The final score, number 22, LSU suffering their 4th loss of the season. Let's go over to the highest graded players, starting off with the Florida Gators. Wide receiver Elijah Badger, I'm going to talk about him a little bit, but he came back in a big way with an 88.2 grade. Tyreek Sapp is next with an 86.2. Miles Graham, the linebacker, 78.8. Caleb Banks, 76.4 grade. Najee Harris, 75.6. And DJ Lagway, kind of a roller coaster game for him. Still has some really nice throws, but only a 54.6 grade overall. And then the other side of the ball, LSU with one of the best tackle duos in America. Well, they played like it. Will Campbell, 74.8 grade. Emory Jones, 73.5 grade. Zy Alexander, 71.5. Sage Ryan, 67. Braden Stinson, also 67 grade. And then Garrett Nussmeier with a 64.6 grade. Dawn, for you, what was the full story in this Florida victory?
I got to tell you, I haven't seen many games like this. This was a weird one.
Yeah.
The Gators only ran 43 plays in this game and won by 2 scores, which is insane. But out of those 43 plays, they got 11 explosives. That's insane. More than a quarter of their plays, they got an explosive play out of it. 4 explosive runs, 7 explosive passes. You mentioned DJ Lagway on the roller coaster a little bit. Well, the high ends of that roller coaster are pretty darn good. I mean, you can see just cannon for an arm, tough to tackle in the pocket. Those 11 plays accounted for 79% of their total yardage. That's just it. I mean, and it's been a problem.
That's LSU.
That's LSU. This has been a problem. The Gators had the ball for 18 minutes, and they had one drive the entire night where they had the ball for 3 minutes. The Gators didn't have the football because apparently they just didn't need it. They were so efficient. I think it was 7.9 yards per play. But this is a problem. There was a couple of games there where we thought with LSU, maybe they're starting to get it together. Maybe they're not going to give up all these huge plays.
The Ole Miss game, yeah.
And the last couple of games have gone right back to it. This defense the last 2 years, when you have a Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback and 2 first-round receivers and go 9-3, this defense let them down last year. For the most part, it's been the same thing this year. There's only so much that Garrett Nussmeier can overcome between their and they ran the ball reasonably well in this game, but between their lack of a run game and the defense that just gives up so many explosive plays. I mean, again, they lost by 2 scores to a team that ran 43 plays. I don't know that I've ever seen that, at least since I've been here. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And you know, credit to the Gators. They made explosive plays because, well, they had opportunities to make them. They have an explosive quarterback, and they're obviously going to build around him the next couple of years. And they've already announced that they're not getting rid of Billy Napier, and they're going to try to keep this core together.
Yeah.
You saw last night what that could look like for the Gators. Now, do they need to get more consistent in between all that? Sure. Do they still probably need to get a little bit better in the secondary? Sure. But it's an encouraging win, especially on the part of Lagway of what this thing could be. And LSU, their defense, look, if they can get whatever quarterback they want next year, or however much offense they want, or keep getting guys in the portal, whatever. If they don't start playing better defense than they've played the last 2 years, none of it's going to matter. You know how the SEC is. If you don't make stops and you're not physical and you don't give up and you give up too many explosives on defense, you're going to have problems week in and week out. There was a couple weeks where it didn't kill them. But for the most part, it's the same story we've seen with LSU for almost 2 years.
I remember, last week, Milroe had 185 rushing yards.
Yeah.
Like a quarterback on 100. I know he's probably the best runner at quarterback in the country, but still 185 rushing yards.
And it's not like they're only 5 yards a pop at 40 carries. I mean, he's dropping 70-yard rushing touchdowns on him. And now it's happening on the ground, too. I mean, you saw, and that's what ended the game yesterday. It's too much. It's been the same story with LSU, and they gave us a glimmer of hope that maybe it was better, but it's just not.
Yeah. My side of the whole story, though, LSU, Dalton, this year has allowed 13 sacks. 7 of them came yesterday against Florida. Over half the sacks that they've allowed all season came in this one game. 4 sacks allowed by their pass protection overall. 3 of them were on Nussmeier. Nussmeier was breaking clean pockets, held onto the ball for a very long time. His average time to throw in this game was over 3 seconds. So he was holding onto the ball for a very long time. And one of the sacks was, a very clean pocket. He just broke out of it and got sacked, honestly. So ironically, and I know there's actually some comments now in the live chat, Dawn, that they're like, wait, how is Campbell and Emory Jones grading so high when they allowed 7 sacks? Well, the pass protection was actually pretty strong all game. 76 pass blocking grade, 26% pressure rate allowed. Will Campbell only gave up 1 pressure, and it was that sack that he gave up, honestly. So they did a great job, though, and you're going to talk about the Florida D-line a little bit, and you can get into after this, but great job of just finishing Nussmeier when they pressured him. 28% of their pressures ended up being sacks. 40% of their pressures ended up being a sack or a hit. And 6 different Florida defenders had sacks in this game as well. So not a lot of pressure on Garrett Nussmeier, but when they did get pressure on him, they brought him down. So just ironically, 7 sacks allowed, you'd think, oh, the pass pro was terrible. No, actually wasn't that bad, but they just did a great job of corralling Nussmeier and bringing him to the ground when they got him.
Nussmeier with his second highest average time to throw of the season. There's going to be at least a good chunk of those sacks that were on him. There was several plays where he was holding the ball too long. And that Gators defensive line, like you mentioned, there's so many guys we could talk about. You saw Tyreek Sapp and Caleb Banks in the top 5, guys like Desmond Watson on the inside right. They had 14 defensive linemen play in this game. And if you want to know how a defensive line survives and stays so effective in a game where their defense was on the field for 42 minutes and 93 plays, LSU ran offensively. Well, they stayed fresh because they had this big rotation of guys, okay?
Like 3 different defensive lines they had out
14 of them played.
Yeah.
10 of those 14 graded at least a 63. Ooh. So you talk about, a 60 in our grading system is like the net neutral traffic cone, like just not really noticing anything positive or negative. Think of it this way. 10 of the 14 guys that played, which is already just ridiculous because LSU, for the most part, had like 6 guys playing on their defensive line with a couple others that got like a handful.
14's like over 3 different rotations of defensive lines.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about 10 of them were a net positive for the game. That's insane. 78.1 overall grade as a unit. They're best against an FBS team this season. 20 pressures among the group, 5 sacks among that group. I mean, just a ridiculously good effort considering how long they were on the field and how many guys were playing for the Florida Gators defensive line. They dominated this football game, right? Yeah. And you mentioned it. They took advantage of when Garrett Nussmeier held onto the ball too long because he did on several occasions, and he's not a guy who's going to get late in the play and improvise. He has to work within rhythm, but there's just not a ton in this LSU offense that's very diverse, right? No. And they don't run the ball a lot. They ran it better in this game than in some past weeks, but they don't have a whole lot of any play action really to speak of. They asked Nussmeier to drop back and throw it, and in this game, the Gators' defensive line got after him when he did. And again, to survive 93 plays as a defensive line speaks to the depth of what the Gators used in this game. They had a spectacular day.
And shout out the secondary, too, because they obviously have had a rough go of it the last 2 years, Florida secondary has, but they covered long enough to make Nussmeier hold on to the football and let their D-line get home as well. So shout out to the secondary. The whole pass defense, it was outstanding, honestly, for Florida in this game. I'll go to the passing offense, though, for my most impressive part, Dalton. Elijah Badger, who missed last week against Texas and made a triumphant return this week against LSU. 87.4 receiving grade, 6 catches on 10 targets for 131 yards and a touchdown. Beautiful back shoulder catch for that touchdown grab as well. He averaged 5.95 yards per route run. For every route he ran, he was basically getting 6 yards on it. 45% target rate. This is a guy, Dawn, that we thought, okay, with Shamir DK, they'd be behind Eugene Wilson, Trey Wilson, and they'd be like number 2, number 3 guys. Badger is the guy for this Florida passing game this year. He is the guy DJ Lagway is looking for right now, not Trey Wilson. Still a very good player, but Elijah Badger, Trevor Sikkema added him to the big board as well. He has been having a really, really good year for Florida, and he's been a very reliable player for DJ Lagway, who you need that for a young quarterback, honestly. So shout out to Elijah Badger, man, because they were relying on him a lot. Like I said, on 45% target rate, on almost half of his routes, he was getting targeted out there. So Elijah Badger, shout him because he was outstanding against LSU, and he's been outstanding for the Gators all year.
And they've had to find a number 1 weapon like that with Wilson out with injury, and Badger, if he's going to be that guy that steps up the rest of the way, and I think this is a Florida team now playing like this. You go, okay, they're playing Ole Miss next week, game we're going to preview.
Yep.
Don't take it lightly. We just talked about it with BYU and Kansas. Don't take any of your opponents lightly this time of year because they're all coming to play, and the Gators also trying to make a bowl game. I know they got the game with Florida State to go, but they want to assure that even going into that, it's going to be a tough game for Ole Miss next week if the Gators play like this.
Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.